think about it. We have the honor and the privilege of being involved in one of the three biggest life events in people's lives: getting married, having kids, and buying their first home. Like, it's a privilege for people to choose us to be involved in that process. And I don't ever lose sight of that. And even if it's not their first home, when they keep coming back to you because it's just, you treated them so well the first time, we're very fortunate, that we can maintain those relationships, because not only were we likable, but we actually executed as well as possible on the job at hand as well.
Hey guys, Wally Olivieri. All right, so what is 24/7 mindset? Most times when you hear 24/7, you're thinking what? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just grinding, hustling. I learned over time, a 24-year career in mortgage and multiple other businesses that I own, is unfortunately, you'll get burnt out. I became an absent father, I became an absent husband, and I became a poor business leader because I was trying to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to build a business, maintain a business. When I learned how to work smarter, not just harder, by doing things the best way it could be done, instead of just simply doing my best, I learned how to work only 24 hours a week, 7 months a year, while I got paid from the business residually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can do the same. Welcome to the show. Thank you everybody for joining 24/7 Mindset podcast show. Today's super exciting because not every guest is exciting, but you ever feel like you met your twin? So it was super cool. I think it was Coach Bill Hart that originally connected us.
Yep.
But the first time I talked to Jason, we were on the phone. It was like a Saturday morning. I was at my lake house, and we literally talked for like north of an hour just the first time. And it was super cool because our values were the same. Our alliances to helping others the same, but also thinking outside the box in the mortgage space was the same. So this is the one and only Jason Brothers.
Yeah, good to see you again, Wally. It's been nice to have a little more time with you this past couple weeks. I've enjoyed it. Sorry I couldn't make the live event, but yeah, I think you nailed it. I was actually just talking to Zoe for a minute. I don't know if you knew this, but the morning that we talked, did you know that I had COVID? And I was literally dead asleep because there's a 2-hour time difference. And I popped out of bed and I was just like, I didn't feel sick, but I knew I was COVID positive. But you and I just hit it off from like the first 5 seconds. And it was like, I knew that you had some stuff that you had planned with your family, but I was like, yeah, if I didn't already know you had plans, we could have talked the entire day. And by the time we got done, we were like, yeah, we're definitely two peas in the pod, because we're not like the average lender or branch leader or regional or whatever. We do things very differently. And there was an instant synergy, which of course I thanked Bill Hart for. I've literally got his signature on the forward on your book on my coffee table that I show everybody all the time. So it's pretty cool to be a part of this. Thank you.
It was he's such a great guy, and he's been a blessing of me over the years. And I remember I was speaking, it was like 2023. I was speaking at the Modern Mortgage Summit, and he sees me, and it's the first time I was speaking publicly about 24/7 mindset. And it's the first time I shared on stage, and I'm on the stage and I share it right before I go on stage. He goes, "Let your voice roar." And, I think when you hear that from him and you see that from him, he's poured so much to me of me growing to having my own voice, and me being comfortable and confident in my own skin of who I want to become. I think the whole transition from being a loan officer to being an author, or being a loan officer to being a coach, from being a loan officer to whatever else you want to call me, it comes from like this imposter syndrome. Like, you never think that, I've written one book, and, when it hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, I'm like, I felt like, is this for real? Is this fake? Like, how does this happen? And him saying those words has poured into me so much that it's been such a blessing.
Sure. Coach Bill Hart has a true gift. And one of my favorite, if I'm ever having even a slightly bad day, I just go straight to YouTube and go to his impact, his all in with Coach Bill Hart, and just watch some of my favorite videos on there. My favorite one with him is shoulder taps. And I think I've mentioned that to you before, but it's just basically when, whether you're a faithful or a religious person or not, we are, and that's something that I love that he's not afraid to talk about. Sometimes God just gives you a shoulder tap and says, you know what, there's something I need to say to Wally right now that I want for him to hear, that maybe he doesn't even know he needs to hear it yet. But you look back on those moments, and I have my moments with him where he's just put his hand on my shoulder and just said, son, you need to tell that story. People need to hear that, and it puts things into perspective that we haven't always, you and I had this conversation last week when we had our one-on-one that, we both sometimes shouldn't be as blessed as we've been. We've been very fortunate that the people who our paths have crossed over the years, and we continue making them cross, every day that I spend with Coach Bill Hart, it just takes me a week to unpack it, because it's just very, very powerful. And I told you January 4th, we coached our whole team. Everybody flew in for a couple days, and Coach Bill Hart, the whole day was coaching on 24/7 mindset, and really and it was awesome. And I even approached him afterward and said, hey, this is the first time that we've actually coached an entirely different coaching everything. And I took it to heart. I sat in the front row like I always do, right on the middle aisle, and just documented everything that was coming out of his mouth. And that was, as soon as I left, I took that book home, and I think you and I were talking same week. I think it was within a week that you and I had our first conversation, and it's been all in ever since. So,
well, tell me a little bit about where was the first time you ever heard of 24/7 mindset, and what did you know about me before you knew about the book, or no?
I didn't. So it was January 4th. It was an all-day in-person coaching. Coach Bill Hart flew in from Southern California, and we coached that the entire day. And I also got a copy of his book, which is White Collar Warrior. So I have both those books on my coffee table, and just incredible sense of pride that I know both of you. And I tell my friends all the time, like, these are friends of mine. These are people that I coach with. These are people that, we're constantly collaborating, one way or the other, sharing ideas with each other. And, it's cool. It's cool to have those resources. I'm definitely grateful that Coach Bill Hart is just, you guys, he's the great connector when it comes to how we're even having this conversation right now. So I'm grateful for him.
So what was kind of your first impressions when you heard about the whole philosophy of 24/7 mindset, about the book, or just the whole mindset shift?
Well, if you remember our first conversation on the phone, I was kind of joking that I was mad at you because, like, I've been doing this for 30 years and trying to fly under the radar and not just share with everybody how much of what 24/7 mindset is similar to what I've done over the years. And I've tried to just keep it pretty quiet. And jokingly, it was like, well, now it's in a book and everybody's getting it, and it's, it's a sellout, which is fantastic. But at the same time, there's always been enough to go around, so just having all those different channels and not really ever going after realtors. I never have. In 30 years that I've been in this business, I've been in a real estate office one time, and it's only because my good friend Mike Wood had to miss a lunch appointment because he had a rehearsal for a big Christmas play event that we were having within the real estate community with about 500 people there. So he just said, hey, you should come check out my new office. I just decorated. I'm like, that's cool. I've never been in a real estate office before. This will be interesting. I've been in this business since 1994. Like, what do lenders do when they go to real estate offices? And it's like, it was good. He was like, it's fun to see you here. But I'm like, yeah, your office is beautiful, but I don't know why I would come here if I didn't have business to refer to you. That's really the only time I would come here. But that's kind of been our relationship. But I think that the key to me is just understanding, and I haven't shared this with you, so I'm going to drop this little nugget here since we're talking. Do you know who my biggest referral source has been for the past year?
Loan officers.
Other loan officers to save deals that they can't. And it's just, they're so easy to talk to, and they welcome that call when, hey, we can be competitors and still collaborate together. If I can do something that saves your purchase deal, your clients are happy, your realtors are happy, you and I can work well together. And that's been a blessing to me to just understand how serious that channel is. And, I get calls from people I've never even met before that say, hey, someone else in my office said, you're the HELOC guy. Like, you are the subject matter expert when it comes to HELOCs to save a purchase that's going sideways 2 weeks before the close of escrow. So it's kind of an honor to have that badge within our industry that, hey, call Brothers, because that guy can pull off miracles with these things and save your purchase sideways. So it's kind of fun, but there's a lot of, I still have so much to unpack from 24/7 mindset that I feel like if I'm lucky, I would say I'm at 30% so far. So I still have a long way to go, which is great. I mean, it's nice to see there's just so much more content that I've gone through it once to kind of get the summary understanding of the sequencing of everything. But now I just have to start getting mastery of each step before I start moving on to the next. So I did the audiobook twice, and I'm about a quarter of the way through doing it a third time, which I think that's very helpful to have that,
Could you tell the audiobook is AI?
Yeah, you and I had that conversation, and it's cool because I know those tools are fantastic to just get enough of your recordings.
I've just got, I read like a 3-year-old, so I wish I could have read my own created my own audiobook, but I might have it redone where, like the podcast style audiobooks where it's like a podcast in the beginning of it. Then each chapter is like a little bit of a podcast. I think it's been cool, but sometimes it's funny. I don't know if I should be admitting this or not, but I listened to it again probably about 2 months ago, and I probably listen to it every like few months just to sad to say, but sometimes remind myself of what I've said in it. When you look at like my last 10 years and getting everything in a book, and I was probably spending 25, 30 hours a week writing that book for like 9 months. Wow. And got everything in there that I could and organized in a way. Sometimes I forget what all I have in there. So it's cool to kind of see that. But one thing
I was just gonna say, I appreciate the process too, because you and I talked about that same time, and you were thinking about the chapter structure and just how to make the next version even, more streamlined and everything flow a little bit better. And it's great. Just because it's done doesn't mean it's done. You're still making improvements to it. And I think it's that process of never trying to stop improving, which, I love. This is going to be an evolution for a long, long time. So I'm grateful for you. It's a lot of work, and I think everyone in coaching appreciates it.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about, so one thing I've really enjoyed with you, and I really want this to be something an eye opener for most people. I love how well you've implemented, obviously you've had a leg up, right? You kind of understood all this before it became like a product, a system. Yeah. And, but how have you embraced the 6-lane highway? How have you unpacked the 6-lane highway to be able to implement it that other loan officers can learn from you? So
it's an extension of the coaching that I've already been doing, which is more sales process oriented, but that fills in a gap that my process has been missing, because that's always been more on consumer direct kind of lead generation background of internal loan officers that are not generally out in the field, but basically giving them an opt out, like, hey, here's another method that if you do this consistently, you don't ever need leads again. Like you can literally generate your entire business and just keep building that. And one of the things between you and Coach Bill Hart talks about how once you've got 3,000 people in your database, your business will sustain you for the rest of your career just based on life events. So it's really just putting yourself out there at all of the major networking events that you can go to, the big coaching events. We just did a big one in Austin, Texas, about 4 weeks ago, something like that. With hundreds of realtors, and that's been really helpful to kind of explain to them, like, hey, most of our business doesn't come from realtors. It's coming from our wealth partners. It's coming from our CPAs and our will attorneys. And like I said on our coaching today, I got a call from my accountant he's been an accountant for 48 years. The guy has an entire life's worth of business that he's accumulated over the years, and he's just a great partner. So having those, I look at it this way. I set a fly trap. I just have a good hook to start the conversation with those partners to get them to just ask, like, hey, tell me more about how you're doing that. The wealth partners that I've met with, we go to happy hour and we'll just sit and have a conversation about it over, a drink, and just say, hey, here's how we intentionally do this. So when you think about how many loan officers, how many of them are trying to push business over to you? Because I can't. we're in a unique market relative to a lot of other parts of the country where 80% of the residents in the state that I reside in were born in a different state. So the migration patterns are massive. I'm 10 miles from the California border, so we have huge migration patterns of people from California that really don't know anyone here, or maybe they have one or two family members. So they're very much open to those referral relationships to say, hey, who do you know who's a really great tax guy? I'm like, yeah, you should talk to my boy Kemp. I call him the tax ninja because the guy was a special agent in the criminal division of the IRS for 25 years. Like, he knows his stuff. But having those people that, I know who are the ones that are really easy to refer to and that make the effort to refer business back. I think I told you my first wealth partner meeting, we both swapped a referral right there. So we both walked out with a referral each. And that was just as simple as having that personal relationship, knowing what their business model is, kind of what you talked about coaching last week was understand their models so you don't get fired, right? If you're referring the right people over to them and they're seeing the value in that, now we're sharing our network with each other and expanding that into folding in our CPAs and your lender and your wealth partner and all those people. I'm excited that one of my investor clients is actually right now taking her test to get her Northwest Mutual licenses and all that to become an agent with them. We've been good friends over the years. So sometimes those things just organically happen, and that's how hers happened. So I'm excited to hear back from her. She's supposed to call me anytime now and let me know she passed her exam. So, nice. But it's fun to have genuine relationships with those people, but still have a business intent in the background. So we're not leading with that. We're leading with the friendship and the relationship, but the business is always back there, so I think it's just make it natural. I don't want you to think about anybody else. If you have anybody that you can refer over to me that wants to buy a house, or maybe is going through a divorce, or has a life event that's going to cause their housing situation to have to change a little bit, I want to do a good enough job that I'm an extension of you. Our relationship and our reputation is so intertwined that neither one of us will ever risk each other's reputation, because we just know we're going to take such good care of that client that they're going to do nothing but brag about us. And I think that's the goal, make everybody raving fans.
So where do you think someone, okay, so one, that's super inspirational. I'm sure that they're going to feel motivated listening, but where do you start? If you're a loan officer and you're seeing this and you're listening to it, and where does someone start?
That's a good question. And I think the easiest answer for me, it's a natural thing for me, and I get people commenting on this all the time. They're like, man, how do you do it? Like, you'll just talk to anybody, anywhere, any airport wine bar, any networking event. Like, I want to touch every single person that I can. And I crave that because it's just, it's building that network of friends. And I definitely think it's not easy for everyone, so that's the hard part, is you have to have kind of that people person, built into your genes, but if you're comfortable talking to complete strangers, I think it's a no-brainer. Then you just need to do a good job of booking your calendar so that you don't miss those events. And, it's kind of fun when people see you over and over and over and you start getting that reputation, like, wow, I see you everywhere. I'm like, yeah, these events are like, I get energized from this stuff. I can't live without it. I just missed two big events. One, Tom Ferry and my friend Andrew Dorn from Follow Up Boss just did two big events in Albuquerque and Salt Lake City last week. So he was traveling with Tom Ferry, which is really good. He and I were at the event in Austin, and same thing. Like, we just want to talk to everybody. Like, they had to keep shushing us because we kept talking through the presenters. But he just got back from 3 days in Nashville with Grant Wise too. And I think we all share that same thing. Like, we just crave talking to everybody, and you just never know where it's going to come from. When we finished the event in Austin, I was waiting for my flight with my friend John, who traveled with me. And he was asking that same question. He works for the #1 real estate team in Nevada. And he was like, I just don't know how you are so comfortable just talking to complete strangers. I'm like, it's little things. I look down at the table next to us and I see a bunch of KW books. And I'm like, are you guys from KW? And she's like, yeah, we're here for the leadership event that was just held in Austin. Next thing you know, we're surrounded by a whole bunch of leaders from KW and just talking with all of them. And he's like, I just don't get how you can just turn it on. I'm like, well, I mean, it's 30 years of experience.
It's a system. It's a model, right? So if I'm a loan officer and I am listening to this, and obviously if it's to say I don't have your personality, the key factor is you looked for a common denominator, right? Which was the books. right? Them in front of them. And so if I look through the lenses of what's the common denominator of me in front of a prospect, once I hit on that common denominator, then it just makes it really easy to open up the conversation, because you can start off with a question around that common denominator.
Right. And I think it's one of those things too that I think you maybe share some of this as well. I get bored easily. So I have so many hobbies and there's so many interests that are just genuine that, I go through seasons where I just decide, you know what, I'm not going to ski this year. I'm not going to get a pass. I'm just going to do maybe some other scuba diving activities and go to the warmer climes. But I've just always been a very curious person. I kind of want to do everything. I want to race cars. I want to race anything you can race. Sounds fun to me. I want to race yachts. I want to be on the Division I fleet. So, I definitely think the more interest you have, the easier it is to find that common thing to talk about with people. I mean, you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours about, anything. I stopped playing golf years ago, but I would pick it. I just literally had this conversation with Andrew Dorn from Follow Up Boss today. I just said, you and I need to go down to Dallas. We need to go for a couple days. I'll take my clubs back out. I'll probably have some new clubs made because I will go play golf with Wally. And I would take golf back up so you and I could go play, because I know how quality that time is. It's more than just the game, even if I'm a hack. But Andrew said the same thing. He's like, yeah, I can't wait to meet him. You'll like Andrew. He's one of us for sure. But it's easy to have something in common with people. It's very rare for me to just have no connection at all. It happens, but there's just some people that you have no similar interest in whatsoever. And it's okay. I'll just move on to the next person who's behind it.
Let's help the audience have some context. So tell us about how you started your career, what are some learning pains that you had as you were building your career, and then what's your business look like now?
So the story, so I won't get into the whole story, but I lost my mom when I was 19, and my situation was pretty desperate. I was homeless, living in a car. And, I didn't know what to do. I didn't really have anyone except my mom to really help guide me and try to kind of start off my adult life. And I just prayed about it. And to be honest with you, I got my real estate license first and thought that was the direction I wanted to go. And I got hired as an accident. I got hired. I was interviewing for a $7.50 an hour telemarketing job at a mortgage company in Wilmington, Delaware. And I just needed any job I could get. Didn't matter. I just needed any job that could put gas in my car, that I, could just pay my rent and whatever. And I remember being really frustrated that they kept asking me. It's an hour drive each way. And they kept asking me back for 4 interviews total. I'm like, why would they need to interview a telemarketer 4 times? And then the 4th time, when they finally made my offer, it was for a loan officer trainee class. And I realized they'd made a mistake. And they put my resume in the wrong pile with the recent University of Delaware college grads. And I didn't find that out till about 6 months later. But I was like, you know what? Even the training pay was better than the situation I was in. So I was desperate enough that I was going to do whatever I had to do. And honestly, my first thought was, I'm not even remotely qualified for this job. Everyone else here has a college degree. I'm straight out of high school. All I've ever done is lifeguard and farm. And when I started looking at the makeup of the class, there were some stockbrokers, there were a bunch of recent college grads, a bunch of really smart people. But the one thing that I did not have was entitlement. And I was a sponge. I just soaked up everything that they taught me. And everything from 2 weeks of calculator training and learning how to do amortization schedules on your calculator within seconds, to the sales process and everything that they taught me. And it was very valuable training. And then as soon as everyone graduated from class, you were out in the field and everyone would come back. Remember those days? We had to have the tri-copy fax paper or whatever that paper was that you had to rip the holes off the sides to run credit reports. So everybody would come back to run their credit reports at the office after all their appointments were done. So the first day after school, I was like, how'd everybody do? Everybody had 3 appointments or something, and everyone's kind of moping around like, oh, I blanked. I'm like, what do you mean you blanked? They're like, well, why? What did you do? I'm like, I'm 3 for 3. They're like, you seriously are 100%? I'm like, yeah, I batted 1,000 today. Like, anybody else bat 1,000? So it became clear for me pretty early that taking that training to heart and listening to the people that were coaching me and giving me really good advice, I just absorbed it and then I copied it. And then I showed other people how to do the same thing. And then I role played with them, so a lot of my friends that were not seeing success right away, it was like, hey, let me help you because this is pretty easy for me. And it might just be that more practice is going to get you there, but I enjoyed that reputation of constantly being willing to help my coworkers and seeing them kind of blossom and turn into successful loan officers. And I haven't kept track of that class from all the way back in the mid 90s, but I would hope that a lot of those people are still in the business. And
so if you look back, so that's mid 90s. So how did you maneuver through the Great Recession? So 2007, 2008, how did you maneuver through it? How'd you come out from the other side?
So I was pretty blessed that my CEOs have always said the one gift I have is I have this innate ability to see around corners. And I was real close to the folks in capital markets. I was really close to my leadership, my direct leadership, who's in Dallas, Fort Worth, actually. And he's been like an older brother for me. But we talked about this in April 2016. And I still have my meeting notes to this day of April 10th of 2016, where I told my team, like, guys, it's math. We know this is going to come to an end, and we know it's probably going to be around September 2007 is when capital markets are they're going to cease to operate. They're going to freeze up. We're going to see condos and second mortgages go away first. And it's going to get hard enough that most of us, and I tried to make that about us, not just them, most of us are going to have a really hard time, and not a lot of us are going to make it through this. And I'm talking about me as well. I know my job is on the line, and I know it's not going to survive. So I had a plan already in place and kind of understood the default wave that was coming behind. And, I turned an opportunity into just option arm whole loans that were sitting on Bank United's balance sheet in Florida. And that was the bank that FDIC deemed was not too big to fail. So they had $14 billion in whole loans on their balance sheet. So we just pivoted to basically whole loan trading and asset sales and default servicing, and basically got picked up by a hedge fund. So if you watch the movie The Big Short, that was all about everything we were doing during that time was just waiting for loan origination to come back. So with all the forced selling of bonds and stuff, we just took our experience. I say we, meaning myself and my business partner at the time, Jeff Peterson, who both came from origination and just basically became partners in a hedge fund, to advise them about, hey, here's what we've been seeing in the field that you guys on Wall Street don't know what the collateral composition of this stuff is. There's opportunity there, but it was such a difficult time that all the forced selling was causing those option arm mortgage-backed securities. And really every mortgage-backed security at that time was selling for pennies on the dollar relative to their actual value, right? But there was just so much mystery about all that stuff that they really needed to fold in loan guys who came from the street that could let them know, like, no, here's what the underwriting for these things actually look like. We don't just let them fog a mirror and assume that the number they gave us for their income is correct. It's not quite that easy. It's a little bit more to it than that, but there was opportunity there.
Not much more.
Well, it just depends on what kind of lender you work for. I've never worked for a lender that would just do anything that was available. I used to have to scare the what was it called? World Savings? Was it World Savings was one of the big. So I would come back and see the rep in my office. I'm like, you're not allowed to be here. I told you this. We don't do option arms here. We're an Alt-A lender, but we don't go any riskier than that. And, there's other companies that would just do whatever. We're never one of them. I wanted to work for more reputable companies than the companies that were just putting people into predatory lending. Interestingly enough, that whole $14 billion portfolio had some of the lowest defaults of any bank that was sitting on that large a portfolio. They actually performed well. So it was really just finding a way to kind of bide our time until we started to see the bond prices reflect that origination was going to start coming back. People had kind of worked through. Go ahead.
So see that. So I want to pause for a second. So I'm hearing creativity. I'm hearing thinking outside the box. I'm hearing bravery, but also most importantly, I'm hearing the ability to stay calm during situations like that. So pair that with, obviously we all had an amazing 2020. We all had an amazing 2021, right? 2022 started off really good, and it ended up a little bit worse. But how have you shifted in 2023 and 2024? And how have you kept your sanity? How have you not wished for the past? How's that been going?
So I appreciate that, and I agree that sometimes you just have to really keep yourself calm. I made it to September of 2023, and I was beat down. I was trying to not let it take me negative. So the first thing I decided to do was just start being everyone's cheerleader. And every time I started to feel that I was maybe getting a little bit down, I just started calling people and checking in, like, hey, how's your business? Tell me how things are going with you. And that lifted my spirits to kind of keep me running through. I had the worst fallout of any year in my 30-year career in 2023, and it was hard. I mean, they're the last deal that I had fallout at the closing table in September. I wasn't ready to throw in the towel, but I knew it was time to pivot. And that was when I started really leaning into AI and that AI HELOC that you and I've talked about many, many times. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to do nothing but pivot away from purchases completely and do nothing but debt consolidation, renovation, home improvement, and rescue HELOCs for my friends that are lenders at other companies. And even friends that have that HELOC haven't figured out how to make it work. So they'll call and just say, here, just take my client. So I decided for the fourth quarter, I wanted to see if I could make enough doing nothing but HELOCs that were referred to me by competitors to help save a deal. And it wasn't huge volume, but it was enough that I was like, okay, I could stay afloat and just ride this out. We know this storm's going to come to an end, but just having the small wins, it's the little victories. It's controlling the velocity of how fast those close, and, hearing the joy in other people's voice when you rescued, $600,000 or $700,000 purchase from them that was otherwise about to die, and then hearing them kind of brag about you. It's weird how we really lean into that positivity. We all need it. We all need a little bit of that, lift once in a while, because, we're in a brutal business. You're going to have bad days once in a while. It's just having that intentional ability to recover from those quickly. Don't wallow in it. Just get right past it. Make that call to that one person that always brightens your day. And by the time you get off the phone, you forget what you were upset about in the first place. And I think that's what I've been encouraging people to do is, hey, if you're having a rough day, call me. I'll get you out of the hole. I'll get you out of the, that funk that you're in. It's really just being a good influence in the industry and trying to bring a different view of that there's more than just making loans to what we do. Sometimes it's just being the cheerleader that all your realtors and all your other lender friends are struggling. Like, hey, let's do a practice real quick and just get your mindset back on track, because you're not going to be effective at your job if you're just super negative all the time. And I think we've all had those days. Sometimes it's good to know when to check out. I'm going to take a mental health day for the rest of the afternoon, get my attitude in check. It's powder day. I'm going to go ski powder for a couple of days and just not talk to anybody until my brain is back in check and rested and I can come back and be positive again. I think that's the secret to me, is just finding positivity wherever you can, celebrating every success, even the tiniest little victories. Yeah, I mean, $160,000 loan, I'll take it. I got to do a bunch of them, but it's still a win.
So we're coming to the end of the show, but I mean, I think what's cool about this is you definitely have exceeded my expectations. I think it's really great because there's so many nuggets that people will walk away with, but then more importantly, they understand that your success isn't accidental, and it's very thought through. Now, I want to give you the last thoughts. So right now it is end of June 27th, 2024. So we're wrapping up, the first half of the year, right? We've got the second half of the year coming around. So what you as a leader in the industry, what kind of advice can you give loan officers out there listening to this? How do they go from, the first half of the year? How do they make the second half of the year better than the first half of the year?
So, and I think every year is different. And I think one of the things that our industry as a whole is guilty of is looking at seasonality and making a much bigger deal out of it than it actually is. When you see how much pent up demand there is in 2024, I think loan officers should not be writing off the fourth quarter of this year, because I think once we see that wave start, it's going to go right through winter. So the loan officers that just check out in the winter and take massive amounts of vacation or spend the whole time doing their CE, to get caught up because they didn't do it earlier in the year. Yeah, we're going to steal market share from those people. There's just a lot of people not keeping their eye on the ball in those months that are traditionally supposed to be slower. I just tell people all the time, just nod your head and agree with everyone else when they say it's just going to be really slow in Q4, because it's always slow in Q4. No, it's not. If you work as hard in Q4 as you work in Q2, you're going to do much better than everybody else. It's just a mindset. If you decide to just flip the switch and turn it off, yeah, you're going to be as slow as your effort shows. But if you make an effort to lean into that, you're going to hear from the people that you're talking to. They're not getting as many calls as they get July and August. That's been every year since I've been in this industry. I've always done better in November, December, January than most of my friends. And it was just because I didn't treat it any differently. So I expect, as we see so much pent up demand, at the same time, we see the largest generation of first time homebuyers in US history, and 10,000 people turning 62 per day that are starting to pivot into an entirely different market that most of us have never even gotten into before. But doing reverse mortgages and those kind of things, there's opportunity there. You just have to pick which lanes you want to be in. Yeah. And that's it. I think everyone just needs to get really good at thoughtfulness and realizing what lane sounds the funnest to you. Because if you're having fun with it and you're really enjoying that, you're going to be successful. I think people tell me that all the time. The energy that you put off is what you attract. I love what I do. Even the hardest days, I got a smile on my face because I'm like, how hard is our life really? How hard is our job compared to how many other things you could be doing right now that you make a fraction? But you still have your lumps once in a while. But if you genuinely enjoy helping people, and I'll give you this description because I think it fits into your question. I think
this is your last closing thoughts, so let's make it count.
So I've had people laugh. My ex and I joke about it. She's like, "You're so passionate about what you do, and it sounds like such a boring business. Why are you so into this?" And think about it. We have the honor and the privilege of being involved in one of the 3 biggest life events in people's lives: getting married, having kids, and buying their first home. It's a privilege for people to choose us to be involved in that process. And I don't ever lose sight of that. And even if it's not their first home, when they keep coming back to you because it's just, you treated them so well the first time, we're very fortunate, that we can maintain those relationships because not only were we likable, but we actually executed as well as possible on the job at hand as well. So I don't ever take that lightly. I don't think I'll ever change how I view that. It's one of the biggest honors that people could ever choose you to be involved in, is those 3 big life events. It's maybe not at the same level as getting married or having a kid, but it's not far behind. So it's definitely something I don't take lightly, and I enjoy it. We carry everyone's stress for them as they're going through this process. Even if it goes perfectly, people still get stressed, so it can stress us out. You just have to get really good at just hiding that, suppressing it, and, just stay calm. Everybody take a deep breath, stay calm. We're just making loans. We're just doing real estate. Just
as we look at this and as we wrap up, what's super cool about that? Okay. All right. So, you keep your foot on the gas. Some of the biggest takeaways, right? Keep your foot on the gas going in the Q3 and Q4. And then also just the ability to stay calm and to just breathe through it. So my 2 biggest closing takeaways from what you shared in the closing thoughts is keep your foot on the gas and breathe.
Yeah. So, I think it's really being kind of present and aware of what's going on. But yeah, it's good. It's good. So I look forward to continuing collaborating with you. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. We've opened up this whole new chapter of, what our future business looks like together. So I hope to continue collaborating with you and all the rest of the people in 24/7 Mindset.
Awesome, bud. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for always being so open and sharing. And this is definitely, I think, will be one of many people's favorites podcasts that we've had ever since. I appreciate your inspiration.
I love it. Great to see you as always, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care. So thank you so much for listening today. It means a lot you took time out of your day. I don't take that lightly. Understand very clearly that you're very busy. With that being said, if you want to continue your journey and learn more about 24/7 Mindset, if you're on Facebook, which I'm going to guess you are, then go to 24/7 Mindset on Facebook and join the private community. I do coaching tips on there on a daily basis, but from scripts on there to systems on there, models, and the ability to be able to grow and scale a business while you have a quality of life. Hope to see you there.